Tell us where we are right now with what we've done with Don in the first segment and what we're about to do in segment number 2 today.
Well, basically, the first thing we did, Don, is we identified, was your nervous system working efficiently enough to stabilize the muscle? And it wasn't. So the next step is you would see our doctor, and then after you see the doctor and we turn those switches back on, we'll go to section 2, which we're in right now. And that is, I'm going to find exactly where the origin of your pain signal is coming from. It's called a trigger point. So I'm going to identify exactly where that's at, and it's going to be nowhere near where you think it's at.
So what's next? What do we do?
First thing, point to us where you normally have the greatest amount of pain.
Usually in this area here.
Right in that area? Let's have you roll over.
So he's pointing right now to just sort of right to the right of his hip, sort of right above the
right above the glute.
Right above the glute.
Yeah, right above the glute. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a black electrode down, and I'm going to place it right in that location where you say you feel the most pain, which is probably right in there. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes. And that's where probably they put the injection in it.
It was actually more in here, I think.
Oh, okay. So they put it more in L4?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Very good. Now I'm going to take a red electrode, and I'm just going to get this out of our way. So I'm just going to mosey this one over to here, and I'm going to take a strap, and we're going to strap that in just to kind of ground it out of our way. And then what I'm going to do is turn the ARP up to where I can read your body. So I'm just going to have you raise your leg just a little bit, Don. There we go. Perfect. All right, now I'm going to hold that electrode right there. I'm going to turn the power up. Tell me when you first start feeling it.
Feel it.
Okay. And as I turn this up, I'm going to get to a point.
I can feel it pretty good.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 is excessively uncomfortable and 1 is no big deal, what number do you feel right now?
That's probably about a 6, maybe
okay.
Approaching 7.
About a 6 or a 7?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So now let's take this electrode, and we're looking for a bigger number, Don. So I'm going to just move this electrode around your skin, and you tell me when it elevates in intensity. Okay, as I'm going down here. Okay. A lot less, right?
Yeah, oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Let's have you roll over on your tummy. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to put this electrode right here. And obviously that's a little bit more, right, Don?
Yeah, it is.
A lot more? How about right up here? Is that a little bit more? Okay. All right, so Don, we've identified pretty quickly here that nowhere near your hip is your problem. So we're going to start right there as being part of our problem. So now we're going to take the red pad off, and we're going to put it right where we originally started the black pad, which is right in here. And as I turn the power back up, you're going to tell me, is it more or less than what it was originally, okay? So I'm just going to turn the power up. And
Right there.
oh, no. Okay, now, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you feel now?
I can feel a lot. I can feel, the electricity or whatever you're.
Yep. It's electricity.
Electricity, yeah.
Okay. Now, as I move this pad, tell me if it becomes more or less.
Less.
Okay.
So it was becoming less of what Don was saying, in case we couldn't pick that up.
How about there, Don?
It's a little more.
So it's more than there on your hip, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, Don, there's where your problem is. So you come and you get treated right here. How successful do you think that's going to be?
Well, probably not.
Not very successful. So here's where the damage is. This is where the signal is coming from, causing this pain, and your ankle is where the actual origin of all of this came from. So the next step we will do is we would actually treat you in that location. Any questions?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Okay, so you where did you find then the origination was in the ankle? The back is where he's getting, the hip is where he's getting the pain, but where was the problem?
The problem is up in his quadratus lumborum, which is up higher, up from his, what we call our love handles, the muscle group, the major muscle group up here. So if we watched him sit or walk or stand or whatever, what we'd see is these muscles fatiguing very, very quickly, leading him to standing something similar to that. Is that kind of what he normally sits at like that and stands like that?
And what do you mean by sit at front of the radio listener? I mean,
So he's sitting in a chair. Instead of sitting like I am,
straight up.
he's sitting like this. Instead of standing like this at military attention, he's standing like this.
So just a little bit hunched over from the waist.
Hunched over from the waist, because his legs can't hold him up. God made these as stilts to hold up the house. If I cut the stilts out from underneath the house collapses. Common sense, right? Like that?
Yeah, I like that common sense, yes.
Okay, so that's what's happened here. His house has collapsed. So all we're going to do now is we're going to treat him, and we're going to force him to do the proper position. And when he starts moving in a proper position, his brain will pick up and say, oh, wait a minute, that used to hurt, but now it doesn't hurt. So maybe I should start using this correctly instead of incorrectly.
So that's the next step now.
That's our next step, is the treatment.
So because now I remember for me now, after we determined where the issue was with me, and I had the so-called golfer's elbow. I'm a right-handed golfer, was in the inside of my right elbow. My next 2 weeks were spent coming to your office.
Yes.
And is Don's treatment going to be similar to mine? Mine was where you actually, I mean, obviously the pain is in a different spot, and it's originating in a different spot than mine was, but you had me hold a golf club in my hand, not holding it as if I was swinging it, but holding it like I was holding a broomstick or something like that, and you would put me on the ARP wave, and you would have me move my arms, and you would give me electricity that would go to different, at different intensities. Mm-hmm. Is that what you'll be doing next with Don?
Typically, basically, what I'm going to have him do in the next segment is I'm going to have him stand up, and I'm going to watch him stand. Then I'm going to put him in your chair, if you don't mind, and I'm going to have him sit down and stand up. And then I'm going to draw his attention to what he's doing correctly and what he's doing incorrectly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hook the electrodes up, and then we're going to force him to sit in the chair. I'm going to assist him, if I need to have him stand up correctly using the muscles in the proper order. And then instead of holding anything, he'll be actually holding on to me, because I doubt, and don't take this wrong, Don, I doubt if he's going to be able to stand up correctly. So I'm going to assist him to break that, what we call a compensation pattern. And that right there is the number one differentiation between us and anybody else. If he went to therapy of any kind, they do rest, ice, compression, elevation. I'm sure he went through that route. Then they go joint mobility, and then they go functional strength, and the last thing they do is compensation pattern. So for the rest of his life, he's going to move the way he's moving right now. When I get done with him, he's going to move like he was when he was 10 years old.
And there's no reason why he can't.
No reason. None.
We'll take our next break, and this is what we'll do. You're listening to House of Pain here on The Fan. ARPWave.com is the website you need to go to if you want to contact Dennis or his staff. I'm assuming Dennis is also, we'll talk to him about this, about if he has his, do you have the offer for the listeners that we've always had?
Yeah, we do. We've been swamped by, as a matter of fact, Don called, when I called Don, he said, well, why am I the lucky one? Well, I just got back from Amsterdam, and his email was in my email box, so I called him. Little did I know we had 41 others in somebody else's email box, so he got first crack at this opportunity. But yeah, if they come into the clinic, we'll evaluate them at no cost, and we'll give them their first treatment at absolutely no cost, just to demonstrate to them that we can help them.
Let's take a quick break. We will come back with more. You're listening to the House of Pain here on a Sunday morning on The Fan.